Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Something in this room is beeping. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but we are going to find out together. But today, we're making risotto. Prosecco Kale Risotto, to be specific, and there's a lot of reasons for the Prosecco and the kale, but we'll get into them in this video. First things first, though, I needed to... Why am I holding this arborio rice like a baby? I needed to set some YouTube expectations. If you happen to be one of the 0.2% of people who say, oh my gosh, I came here for recipes, and there's just so much talking. If you came for somebody who's gonna stand over a pot and says 2 tablespoons of paprika, 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, we're here to yap. What else would you want? What else would you want from me? I'm here to hang out. I'm here to have fun. Also, I was listening to the Try Guys on a podcast. They were talking about their new streaming service, Second Try. And what they were saying is that they felt trapped in the YouTube algorithm of trying to please what the algorithm wants, and they didn't want to feel trapped anymore. And what's so interesting is I came to YouTube because I didn't want to feel trapped anymore on the other algorithms of Instagram, TikTok, and the like. And the reason I feel trapped over there is because it is nearly impossible to get your accurate personality across. So to see other creators on this app that I escaping to other mediums was such an aha moment for me. We create the spaces we want to exist in. I was reading Anna Garten's memoir, and she quoted someone saying, we're all in cages with the door wide open. And so I've decided here on YouTube, this is not my main bread and butter. Since there's no anxiety attached to this, I can make it what I want. And what I want is like a chatty, educational space where you're learning about the recipe, but I'm also cooking it. It's not just, here's the recipe on a platter. You can find that anywhere, but you can only find this loud mouth here. With that, we're gonna go into risotto from the cookbook, which I'm matching today in honor of us being 2 weeks out. As of yesterday, I'm gonna be on the Today Show in 2 weeks. I'm terrified. But this risotto was honestly a recipe that I kept super simple because risotto is one of the first things I learned how to cook. It's a technique that is like riding a bike. Once you do it once, you can do it over and over again, and you might be a little bit addictive because the power that agitating starches gives you. Just don't go on a power trip. You're gonna be like, I'm a rice genius. I can make this amazing creamy starchy Italian thing that's gluten-free in my sleep. And then you might have too much power. You'll need salt, olive oil, 1/2 of a small white onion, 1 cup of risotto rice. This can be short grain rice or arborio rice is my preferred. 1/2 cup of Prosecco or dry unoaked wine. We'll talk about the wine. It's not too important, but it's important. 3 tablespoons of salted butter, 2 cups of kale, stems removed, and 3 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice, and 1 ounce, which is not a lot, of Parmesan. So maybe I'll say you can follow Olive Garden rules there, and if you want more Parmesan, you can add more Parmesan. Also, between us, I only have pecorino, so I'm not telling you to follow too many rules here. Now the first step in a risotto is what I like to call the big old pot. It does not need to be a Dutch oven, although if you do want to win this one in this exact shade of blue, the shade of blue is really pretty. If you want to win it, it's part of a pre-order bonus. I'm giving away 10 of them as a thank you to the people who pre-ordered the cookbook. So a link to order the cookbook and then to enter that is below. But all risottos start with a big old pot. Now this can be a Dutch oven, this can be a stainless steel pot, and this can also be filled with different things. It can be filled with water, which in this case that's what we're doing here, vegetable stock, chicken broth, beef stock. It's really up to you. You just need a lot of liquid. The reason I'm calling for water here, especially now when groceries are crazy, if something isn't packing a ton of flavor to it, I tend to not call for it in a recipe. So I found with this, vegetable stock and water give the same result. You just need to salt it properly. So everybody, welcome back. Steve, my favorite salt guest star. And this water is gonna get 2 tablespoons, which is 2 big pinches of salt. This is about, I'd say 8 cups, 2 quarts in here. I was like, why does this feel too easy? It's because I forgot to mise en place my one item to mise en place. This guy. It's not that I think chopping is hard. It's just that I think onions are their special brand of tedious because you have to peel, you have to cry if you're a weeper. As someone who cries a lot, I've always been able to evade onion tears, and that's because I wear contact lenses. So if you wear contacts and you think you're magical, you're not. It's your contact lenses saving you, but mine only save me 50% of the time. Then if I'm wearing my glasses, game over. I'm a major weeper. I went over how to dice in another video. And of course in that video my slices are subpar, and in this video I just did a perfect slice when you can't even see my hands. You just have to, you're gonna take my word for it and also look at this onion and go, ooh, ah. So you slice boom, 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 like a smooth, and then you go boom, 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 boom. And then when you go do, 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 are the sound effects helping? We're now back with Big Pot and high-sided sauté pan. Thank you for your mise en place patient. Now we can talk about what makes a risotto a risotto. What makes a risotto is fat, starches, and alcohol. I'm putting Big Pot over medium heat. We're gonna give it some time to warm up, but it does need to be warm. High-sided sauté pan is gonna go over medium heat as well. And we're adding a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Fat is so important because it helps toast the rice. Olive oil itself and the butter that we're gonna add blends so much flavor. So you're like, this ingredient list is so short. That's because the fats are doing a lot of the work. And also without the olive oil, the onion wouldn't be able to cook properly, and that would take away a bit of the creaminess and the texture from the end result. Now once this oil is warm but not hot, I'm gonna add in the onion. So a gentle sizzle. I'm also adding a large pinch of salt because another point of risotto is you're layering flavors every single step. Otherwise you're left with a really creamy, beautiful product, but it's pretty much bland. You want to cook the onions for 5 to 7 minutes to get them softened, but again, no color. And then we're going to add a 1/4 cup of water and let them simmer in that till they become almost meltable. What I think is cool here is you'll see the water simmer off, but the oil stay. And you can do this in as many rounds as you want until you think the onion is well cooked. And also, when I was starting to learn how to cook, one of the cool things that I could see, like, oh, you can add water to oil when it's already warm and not have it be chaos. But if you're heating up oil and there are water beads on your pan, a little bit more chaotic. And when it looks like this, the arborio rice can go in. Why I love risotto and why I wanted to show you all a risotto is it is a crash course in visual cues and auditory cues. It's just a crash course in cooking intuition. So let me double check the pages. But in the book, not plugging it or anything, but in the book it says add the rice and stir quickly to make sure it's coated. You saw that happen. And then cook until you see the sides of the rice turn clear. What I can't tell you in pages that are minimal is you want to add the rice when that oil is doing that perfect simmer sizzle thing. And you want to stir vigorously because what you're doing is you're cooking the outside of the rice in the oil. So that means when you start adding water, start agitating the starches, start cooking the grain itself will cook nice and evenly because it has this coating of oil that cooked the outside. And it can turn clear in about 4 to 5 minutes, but it can also happen much faster. And then the other cue that I love is the auditory cue of how the rice will sound hitting the outside of the pan. So right now, it's still a little sticky, but soon you should be able to hear it almost clatter the edges of the pan, meaning the outside of the rice is cooked. See if I can do this properly. Not too bad, but we're doing a 1/2 cup of Prosecco. Oh no. Now, I said any brand of Prosecco, and I meant it. And you do want to let that simmer for 2 to 3 minutes just to cook off the alcohol. And once it starts to look like this, then we're going to start to ladle the simmering Big Pot of into the risotto. 1 ladleful at a time is good. So for the next 25 minutes, you're kind of just going to be babysitting. And as soon as the rice absorbs all the liquid, take another scoop. Don't do that. Why would you do that? Don't do that. Take another scoop, carefully put it in, and then mix until the water absorbs, and then repeat. And so that's why this water is so salty. It's so that while this has a lot of flavor to it as well, that salt will be absorbed by the grain. And that gets me into the question of why Prosecco, which is a great question. First off, it's fun. I chose it because it's also an incredibly clear directive, because a lot of times a cookbook will say, a dry white wine, or a wine that is cheap enough to cook with but good enough to drink. And a lot of people who aren't wine experts, myself included, go into that being like, okay, but what if I choose a Chardonnay and that won't go well with the recipe, or what if I choose the wrong wine? Now, Prosecco, even though it has bubbles, and a lot of people might think it's an odd choice, really, what it is it's an incredibly light, incredibly crisp, incredibly dry, and most of the time very affordable wine that will clearly always give you the same result pretty much no matter what Prosecco you choose. So along with quality control, my last reason is that ideally you'll be making a risotto with people around. You know, 25 minutes of stirring can be kind of a lot. I don't want you cooking it in your kitchen alone with your cat. That's for me to do. I want you cooking hopefully with friends who also love a dry, crispy, celebratory, bubbly white, because nothing annoys me more than when a recipe's like 1/2 cup of wine, but I'm not going to be drinking the wine with the recipe. That's why Prosecco. And one thing I've been repeating over and over, but we've never formally talked about, is agitating the starches. Now, this comes into play with what type of rice you use, which is, I said, arborio rice or short grain sushi rice are the only suitable rices. And that's because they have a natural starch to them, which as you mix them with water, they become thicker, they become creamier, that starch forms on the outside, which doesn't happen with all rices. So a jasmine rice, you wouldn't be able to get this same reaction with. The grain tastes a little al dente, very savory, very good. So that means we're at the tail end of adding liquid to the rice. I say 2 quarts in here, and I've used almost most of it. I kind of eyeball what goes in the big pot. I really can't give you an exact amount of liquid that you'll need. 8 cups is a very reasonable metric, but sometimes I need more, sometimes I need less. It depends on how well I cooked the rice in the oil. It depends on if I overmeasured 1 cup or undermeasured 1 cup. And then just quickly tear up the kale. And the rice is looking pretty beautiful. I think it needs 1 more ladle. I'm gonna turn the heat off of the big pot. And once this combines with the rice, we're gonna turn the heat off of both burners and start building all the other flavors into the rice. While it's still warm, let's add all of the butter. What I like about adding butter, and I really think this is true, is that for a while it'll feel like the rice is all congealed into one smooth rice porridge, but I feel like adding the butter helps the rice separate back into their individual grains. That's why there's so much butter, because it so helps with that. There's so much kale, which I just added in, because it will wilt into the risotto as you stir it in, but also still give it a lot of volume. Add the lemon juice directly in. You can also do lemon zest if you're a lemon person. And if you have tasted the risotto before adding the lemon and you're like, oh, this might be a bit too salty, the lemon juice will cut some of that salt out and you'll have a really nice balance. If you need to add a few splashes of water to thin things out, feel free. You'll probably need a few splashes of water just to help the kale melt into the risotto. Then after that, we're just gonna add the pecorino cheese. Whoa, sorry, Parmesan in the book, pecorino if you're me and you don't wanna buy more expensive cheese when you already have expensive cheese. Stir that in. If you have more kale and you want more kale, feel free to add it in, but I'm pretty happy with this. It's mostly risotto, some vegetables. Eric already took his portion out to where I'm eventually going to eat it. Notes for the viewer at home. This is part of the greens chapter, so everything is kind of designed as a grain side. That was one of my big challenges when I was writing the book, because I'm so used to making things as full meals. But this was definitely a grain side designed to be served with either, you could do a vegetarian Italian sausage at the very beginning and mix that in, or mix in, this could handle up to 2 cans of beans to make it a serving for 4. So it says it serves 4. Eric has his portion, I have my portion. If you want these as a main dinnery portion, say it serves 2 to 3, so double it if you're serving a big crowd. But I said serves 4 as a reasonable family dinner side. And I just love it so much. I haven't finished my glass, but I hope you finish yours. It's like a nice light acid that you totally need. The lemon juice adds that brightness at the end, and the cheese makes all the difference, and the butter does too. I mean, come on. I wanted to put this on YouTube because even though it's so simple, it's such a good technique to nail. After you nail risotto, you can kind of do anything you want. Anyways, like and subscribe. I will see you next week, probably with a more mealy. Like and subscribe. I'll see you next week. Ooh, maybe with baking.